Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Monday Morning Motivation with my amazing co-host Sophia and equally amazing Michael Bauman, now based in Hangzhou. And he's going to speak about a topic, and I feel like we have never had this before, actually. Loneliness of entrepreneurship. It's real, it's hard, but ... to be continued. So good morning, and we can stay posted. Like, I'm really excited about that. In case you guys are not in a WeChat group yet, scan the big QR code here, and we're happy to have you in our community. What exactly is Monday Morning Motivation in case you are new? Well, it's a community of like-minded people who want to start in a positive way, want to be inspired and motivated, and start well a new day and week. So it's all about self-development and positivity, and we have 7 WeChat groups, nearly 3,000 members now. So we're very excited about this. The cool thing is we have some really cool news. Sophia, do you want to share with us the amazing news that MMM is providing after 2.5 years?
Yes, so we have the start of our MMM totally in Chinese. So we're gonna have our first Chinese webinar on November 17th, and we have our amazing guest speakers Robert and Raquel. So we are very excited for this. So stay tuned because we have lots of news.
The crazy thing is, like, yes, Robert and Raquel are foreigners, and they asked me, Janine, do you mind if we do this in Chinese instead of in English? And I'm like, that's probably the universe sending us a sign. It's time for the Chinese version. The cool thing is you're going to have amazing Sophia and our MMM team member, Emmy Chen. So it's going to be Chinese, Portuguese. I'm just going to be there to look good the first time.
Not really Portuguese language, so.
No, all in Chinese, but you
all
guys. Yes, and you know that we don't have the recordings available for free because we want you guys to get up early, but we have the membership. You have access to more than 1.5 years of recordings, membership discounts, and so on. If you need a nice present, also 11/11 is coming up. Well, we haven't planned anything special yet, but yeah, we always have the 365 days of motivation book with beautiful quotes, gratitude, happiness journaling, goal setting, and so on. And yeah, if you like what MMM is doing, all like our big team, we have quite a few people now. Why not donate a little bit? It's about giving and taking. It's like an energy exchange. And yeah, we give 50% to the 1 Million Tree Project. So who knows, maybe one day we can plant our own forest, not just a few trees in Inner Mongolia. And yeah, this is our lineup. Yes, that would be cool. So this is our lineup for this month. You can see very exciting. And yeah, I would say now it's time for Michael. So the next 20 minutes are yours, guys. Feel free to ask any questions afterwards, interact with him. Michael, the stage is yours. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate being here. So to give a little background on myself, so I'm a Tony Robbins certified success coach, and really around loneliness. So I help entrepreneurs, feel like they're enough and that they're not alone, because loneliness for entrepreneurship and everybody in general right now is a big thing. So I wanted to rewind a little bit and talk about my first kind of dipping my toes in the entrepreneurial water, right? So I was a personal trainer. I was a nutrition coach. I was assistant department head of my gym facility. And I'm like, I am going to start a business, right? I'm going to go out there. I'm going to start an online personal training, nutrition coaching company. And the way I wanted to do this was, since I didn't know a lot about marketing, I was like, I had sold books door to door in college. And I'm like, well, I'm just going to door to door, knock on people's doors until I get enough clients to start my business. So I decided to do this, all super excited, and I'm knocking on these doors. We find out like 2 weeks into me quitting my job, that we are pregnant with our first kid at the time. And like I said, it was a number of years ago. So we're pregnant. We weren't expecting that. My wife's not working. We have no money. she's like morning sickness, like throwing up like every single day, being like, why aren't you here with me? And I'm like, because I'm trying to knock on these doors and like, get clients for my business. And basically the business at that point totally failed. I felt completely alone, both in terms of not knowing how, having somebody to help me get to the next level, which for me, that was like just clients to pay my bills, right? And also not understanding like your family, some of the people around you, they just don't understand sometimes entrepreneurship. You have this goal, you have this passion, you're like, I'm going to pursue it. And they're like, you're crazy. You're leaving the security of your, normal job for this, and for what, right? So super, super lonely at that point. And this is kind of what I wanted to talk about. So, hang on. You have to enable the screen sharing for me here really quick. So I'm gonna share.
Okay, sorry.
No problem. Now I'm going to share my screen here. We're going to go through some of the science behind how loneliness affects us, and then actually the practical things that we can do to help with that. So here we go. All right. So we good? Everybody can see that? Thumbs up. Can we see it? Perfect. All right. So loneliness of entrepreneurship. We have this little teddy bear here, kind of feeling a little alone. Maybe he's starting his fuzzy teddy bear business and he's a little alone. So we're going to talk about loneliness of entrepreneurship here. So hands up or give me a thumbs up on the chat or something like that if you guys have heard of Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Who all has heard of that? Okay, so we see a couple people. All right. So basically, for those of you who haven't heard what this is, essentially is a brilliant behavioral psychologist, but he classified different fundamental needs that we have. And he did it up in a hierarchy. So at the base, you can see there's the fundamental needs for just physiological needs. So food, shelter. Then right above that, we have the needs for like safety and security. And that one, especially in COVID, has really been kind of thrown out. And then above that, you have your needs for love, you have your needs for belonging, for connection. Once your kind of fundamental needs are met, then self-esteem for yourself personally, and then all the way up to self-actualization. So, then you're being, how can I be authentic? How can you show up in the world? How can I have an impact? That sort of thing. But while, the need for food and water and shelter are super, super important, there's a tremendous amount of research by a fellow named Matthew Lieberman. It's a phenomenal book called Social. And he actually argues that our need to connect with other people, our social connection, is more fundamental, more important than even our need for food and water, which sounds really crazy. But how he rationalized this is there's a study that was done on rhesus monkeys. So they put like a wire frame. One of the monkeys has a wire frame. Some of you guys might have even heard of this study. Wire frame, it has a little bottle. So it's basically like giving them the nutrition and the food they need. The other one didn't have any food associated with it, but was soft and cuddly. And they wanted to see with these monkeys, where would they spend their time? Was it just like, I'm connecting with my mother because she gives me the food that I need? Or is there more to it? And this is where a very fundamental theory called attachment theory developed. They found that the monkey would go get the nutrition from the monkey with the milk, and then just spend most of his time actually with the other monkey, this cuddly wireframe monkey, to get the need for connection and love and touch from this other monkey. And so he argues that this is actually a fundamental need. If we don't have that connection with, at that point, our maternal, person or parental figure in our life to give us food and support, then we won't even survive. So he argues it's more important than that need. So with any fundamental need we have in our life, there's a fundamental pain associated with it that lets us know, hey, you need to get this need met. So when we don't eat for ages, we start to get hungry, and it just gets more and more intense until we're finally like, I need to eat food, because your body is going, this is something I need. And I'm going to let you know that you're in pain until you feel this need. Same with thirst, things like that. But what people don't realize is we have this fundamental need for social connection. There's a fundamental pain that we feel when we're disconnected, which is the pain of like loneliness and social rejection. And it actually lights up the exact same neural network in your brain as physical pain does. And that's what people don't really realize. So if you bash your leg against the table, what do you immediately do besides curse? you rub where you hit it. And the reason for that is you have in your spinal column, it's called a spinal gate. And only a certain number of impulses can get through that gate at a certain time. Two different types of neurons. You have myelinated and unmyelinated nerves. Your myelinated ones, the signal gets there faster. And that's sensory nerves. Your pain is an unmyelinated one, so it takes longer to get there. So essentially, when you rub that area, you should still be feeling the same pain, but you're not, because the sensory nerves are blocking out the pain nerves. So actually, it shows how much of pain, even physical pain, is in your brain. Social pain is the exact same. It actually lights up the same network. And you see it in our language. Like when you say somebody broke my heart, or I have a heartache, we're trying to describe a physical pain that we're feeling based on a social disconnection. And it's really, really important. So jumping into the reason for this, basically thousands of years ago, right, when we were part of tribes and herds and stuff, like what happens to the person who's by themselves? Well, they get eaten. You know what I mean? Like we all see the documentaries where there's like the one little like zebra that's running along, gets pounced on by the lions or whatever. So it develops this need for social connection, actually developed out of that. We feel physically insecure and not safe when we are separated socially. And it's important to realize. So we have the aspect of like tribes and herds created this inside of us. And then let me talk a little bit about the effects of loneliness. So they describe loneliness as like the new smoking. And this is really important right now in terms of COVID. So they've done tons of research, longitudinal studies that compare the effect of loneliness. It's actually comparable to having high blood pressure, to not exercising, to be overweight and obese. It's comparable to the effects of smoking has on your body. Basically, it causes a tremendous amount of low level of stress, cortisol, because you're not feeling safe. That then is associated with all of these cardiovascular risks and diseases. Accelerates your aging process. Nobody wants that. We want to be young and beautiful forever. We have higher level of stress hormones. We have lower immune function, lower cardiovascular function, and it actually alters how our DNA is actually transcribed if it's lonely for a long time. So I want to say the loneliness itself is not a bad thing because it helps us reconnect with other people. But when it's extended, that's where we start to get the problem in terms of how we feel and our health. And the fascinating research around this, all of the things I just mentioned don't come because of an objective loneliness. Like if somebody's just alone and not surrounded by people, it actually, all of those things happen because of a subjective loneliness. So the feeling of being alone. So you can be married and you're supposed to be like, super connected with that person and actually feel alone in your marriage. You can be in a room of people surrounded in a party or whatever it is and feel totally alone. And that feeling of alone is what actually contributes to all of those negative kind of health things. So here's breaking down loneliness. There's 3 things that contribute to the aspects of loneliness. One is this is genetically predetermined. And we have a 48% has to do with what affects loneliness. It has to do with the sensitivity we have to social disconnection. Some people are far more sensitive to this than other people. Some people, they have to live in the same house as their parents and their grandparents and their cousins, and everybody's right down the street. And if they go, one town over, they feel incredibly lonely, right? And for some of us that are potentially overseas, it doesn't affect us as much. And what I want to say about that is, one, it's important to realize this both for yourself. Some of this is genetically predetermined. So when other people look at you and you're like, that's not that big deal. You haven't seen that person for a couple of days. But for you, it might feel like a big deal. And also to be compassionate with other people, right? They might be having a harder time being separated from their friends and family during this COVID time than you are. But to understand there's actually difference in genetics that affect this. So then let's talk about the other 2 aspects. The other 2 aspects of how we experience loneliness are our ability to handle our emotions and the mental representations that we have of other people. So this is where it starts to affect us in terms of entrepreneurship. So they did a study. They had all these participants and basically said, like, you're going to mingle together. And then after you mingle together, you're going to choose two people that you want to work with in a group that you like, that you kind of respect. After they mingled, they all got together and they were basically like, okay, they met these people one-on-one afterwards. And this is really kind of like evil. So in one participant, they would say, well, actually, sorry, everybody mingled together and nobody wanted to be on your team. So they just induced this tremendous feeling of loneliness in this person. Then another person, they said, okay, actually, everybody wanted to be on your team. And because you can't do that, you're going to have to do the next portion alone. So they said, this person, nobody wanted to be on your team. You have to do the next portion alone. So they induced loneliness. Then they said, this person, everybody wanted to be on your team. So they induced a feeling of like connection. Then, but you still have to do this next portion alone. They had this bowl of cookies. There are 35 cookies in there. And they wanted to see the way they were presenting it as researchers. They wanted to say, how does this cookie taste? So tell me how this cookie tastes. So the people who are lonely ate double the amount of cookies that the people who weren't lonely. So this has to do with self-regulation. And they actually, both of the people didn't rate the cookies as actually tasting very good. So they're kind of mediocre cookies. Now, this aspect of self-regulation applies in every single area of our life. So you're an entrepreneur and you need to focus on something, right? You need to be productive. You need to have good decisions. Making good decisions has to do with our ability to be able to get rid of all extraneous information, process the information that we need, and make a good decision. If you have a lower ability to self-regulate, and we've all found this, right? If we feel lonely, if we broke up with our girlfriend or having, marital issues, our productivity at work tanks. We can't think about this because we have all of these other thoughts going through our head. And this applies to entrepreneurship. And then also the mental representations, we start negatively biasing everybody's representations more towards the negative side. They don't care, they're not, my friend, whatever it is, that we start negatively biasing it. So this aspect, when we feel lonely and social disconnection, it applies to every area of our life. Yolanda mentioned like food, we use food to compensate. We use all these addictive behaviors to compensate for that. And our productivity and stuff suffers. So let's get into the different levels that we can actually address this. So when we define ourself, they've done research on when you define yourself, there's 3 different levels people typically define. One is me as a person. I'm this tall, I have brown hair, I have these color eyes, I like such and such a thing. This is my personality. So we define it very intimately. Then we define it in terms of your relationship to the people close to you. So you're like, I'm a parent, I'm a husband, I'm a father, I am, a family member, whatever that is. And then on a bigger level, you define it based on your collective kind of identity. So it's like, I am American. I am part of Monday Morning Motivation, right? I like to go hiking. I'm part of this hiking group, right? We define the same thing. We can look at loneliness and use these as an awareness tool to see which areas are we particularly lonely in. So we have our intimate connections. So how connected or lonely do you feel intimately? And what I want you guys to do is just take a couple seconds here and actually define on a scale of 1 to 10, how connected or lonely you feel based in each of these areas. So 10 is like you're super connected and everybody loves you and the world's amazing. And 1 is like you feel very, very lonely and disconnected. So with your intimate connections, 1 to 10, how do you feel? Then relationally, so this is like your friends, maybe your coworkers, like how connected do you feel? 1 to 10. And then collectively, like as your groups, as your tribes, whatever you want to call it, how do you feel based on that? So 1 to 10, just really quick. And you can use this tool as an awareness to just see, oh, wow, maybe I'm actually super connected in my groups that I'm a part of, but with my spouse or my partner, I feel very disconnected. So what can I do to change the loneliness and the connection in that area, or vice versa, right? Maybe you're so close with your family, but you've lost every connection to social groups because of COVID, right? What are little things that you can do to affect that? All right. This is a phenomenal quote. Basically, the secret to gaining access to social connection and social contentment is being less distracted by my own psychological business, especially the distortions that we place around other people making us feel threatened. So if we can get out of our business and get into other people and start realizing that they're going through stuff as well, it helps shift it. Okay. So let me talk now about the practical things we can do to address this. There's two different ways. You can change your feelings of loneliness internally without ever interacting with another person, which shows the incredible power of your mind. And then you can also change them externally. So I'm going to start with the internal ones. This is what I call the love shield. So when everything's going crazy, this is the way that you can shield yourself with connection and love through your perception of the world, and act as a wall with all of the other kind of issues that are going on. So what you can do is you can just sit there and you can, maybe focus on your breathing for a little bit, whatever you do to relax. You don't have to have people around you to do this, but picture in your mind that you are surrounded by all the people that mean a tremendous amount to you, that love you a bunch. It could be family, it could be friends, it could be a coach, it could be a mentor. Picture they're all surrounded. Maybe they're giving you a hug, maybe they're patting you on the back, maybe they're giving you a high five, and just picture them just sharing all of the things. Maybe it's like, you're doing an amazing job. I know this time's been hard, but you're incredible. Like, I love you so much. I appreciate you so much. And even like, memories that you've had, right? You start bringing up these memories that you've had with all of these people in your mind that go, I had this incredible time and we were laughing so hard. We like fell on the ground at the restaurant and it was hilarious. And just that aspect of in your mind, picturing you're surrounded by all these people that are then giving you love. And you want to actually take that feeling of love and receive it into yourself. Because again, there's a difference between subjective and objective loneliness. You need to actually get that feeling inside of you to feel the love, right? So you bring it into yourself and it can change in a matter of minutes. It can change how lonely you perceive yourself to be. So that's the love shield. Another way to do it is using cognitive behavioral therapy. So this is basically how our thoughts affect our emotions and our feelings. And we can access our thoughts, change them, reframe how we feel. So the way we do this is you can ask, is this feeling true? So you can make on your piece of paper, you can have 3 different columns. One column is like the negative event that occurred. So maybe you broke up with, a boyfriend or a girlfriend, or you're having these issues with your spouse. Write what actually happened. Then you write in the next column, you write what is the belief that I have based on that event? So it might be like, I'm always going to be alone and I'm never going to be enough, right? Then the third column, you look at what is the consequences of me believing this? If I believe this, what would actually be the consequences, the tangible consequences? Well, I'd have trouble with connection. I wouldn't feel loved by people. And then you're like a detective. You're like, or like a lawyer where you're going like, I'm going to find hard evidence for whether this is true or not, right? So you look at the thing. Is it actually true that I'm always alone and nobody cares about me? Is it actually true? There might be times that you feel like that, but is it actually true? And then look at the opposite. Look, is there evidence that actually disproves it? Is there evidence where people have connected with you, where they've shown you love, right? You can use that very simple formula to objectively take this feeling that sometimes can be difficult to quantify, put it into the realms of our cognition, and use our mind to change how we feel. So that's another kind of internal way to do it. Then we have expectations and intentions. So this is, back to my story with being an entrepreneur, right? When I'm knocking on the doors, I would have days where like behind every single door was like a crazy monster, right? I'm like, they're like slobbering and being like, get off my porch. Like, I hate you so much. And I'm like, oh gosh, but then I'd have other days where like my mental framework is different. And I'm like, oh, it's cool. We're just, I'm trying to help these people and stuff like that. And then everybody seems pleasant, nice. And they're like, oh no, that's great. And what changed was just me. So there's mirror neurons in your brain that actually reflect the people that you're talking to, whether it's their posture, whether it's their tone. And so when you go in with an expectation that this is going to be a great conversation, right? This person's awesome. You're counteracting a negativity bias that we typically have. And your expectations actually shift them to perceive you as more positively. We see this in coaches. Like if the coach mimics the client's body language, the coach is then ranked as higher in terms of likability. So go in with the intentions when you meet these people, expectations that, hey, this is going to be a great conversation. So then let's talk about external factors. Be curious. So when we have this loneliness, again, it's a fundamental need. So it feels like a hunger. There's a hunger inside where you're like, man, if I'm hungry, I need to get fed. Well, if you're lonely, you're like, I need somebody to show that they care about me and that they love me and that I belong and that I matter. But what's interesting about loneliness is a lot of times we have to feed other people. Even though we feel this need, we have to feed other people to get this reciprocated. So be curious. This sounds very simple, but if you just take, all the stuff that you're going through and instead just switch it around and go, how can I be genuinely curious about what this person in front of me is going through, especially like the struggles that they're going through or their challenges or what they enjoy. Like just be genuinely curious about them. That shifts your perception of loneliness. And it also helps just social connection in general. Then interaction upgrades. So I like breaking things down into small little pieces, right? You don't have to overhaul your life. It's just taking these little things and how can I do it a little bit better? And take any interaction you have, either online or in person, and go, how can I make this just a little bit better? So if you usually leave a like on a post on social media, see if you can just comment, right? If you usually comment, maybe just write them a message and be like, I love that article that you put out, right? Or maybe just give them a call actually on the phone. Like if you send a text message, like maybe just give them a call or give them a video call, even though I'm kind of tired of it. But how can I connect just a little bit more with the interactions that I have at work, at home, online, offline, whatever that is? And last, smile, Monday morning motivation. Actually, if you smile, again, the mirror neurons, the people across from you are more likely to smile as well. And you just changed a little bit your perception of loneliness and their perception of loneliness. And even with a mask on, you can see it in the eyes. So those are the internal and external things that I wanted to talk about that. And then if you guys are interested in checking out my podcast, I interview a lot of CEOs, neuroscientists, and we talk about this issue of loneliness too. There's a loneliness behind success. There's also the fears and the doubts that you don't see behind this appearance of like, this guy's a multimillionaire. So check that out, Success Engineering, if you guys are interested, but I really appreciate your time.
As we say in German, Zugabe. One more time because it was so good.
Thank you.
So yeah, we actually had a pleasure, Sophia and me, to meet Michael in person when we had our soft launch of Monday Morning Motivation in Hangzhou. Michael was also there for the real official launch. So we can definitely say he's a huge supporter of MMM. And I was lucky to be part of his pod. So guys, really check out Michael, share the page again with your pod. In case people haven't gotten it yet, I think really check out. He interviewed some interesting personalities, not only from China, but from several countries, TV hosts, celebrities, very successful business people, and so on, like a really good variety. Okay, good. Now it is time for a lot of questions. Great, Michael just shared it here in the WeChat group. In the Zoom group. And I'm sure he will share it in all WeChat groups later as well.
Yeah.
Okay. So have you already answered Yolanda's question?
No, I wanted to actually talk about that. So yes, she's absolutely right. There's a difference between loneliness and being alone. And that's what I talked about. There's a subjective loneliness and there's an objective loneliness. Objective loneliness is like, there's no people around me, but you don't actually have to feel alone. Or the subjective feeling of loneliness, you could be surrounded by people and actually feel alone. So there is a difference there. And it's also important. And Sophia brought this up in the last call. We have a different sensitivity, right? So remember, there's that genetic predisposition. Some people are like, I just don't feel alone. And that's totally fine. And other people are like, man, if my cat moves like 2 feet away from me, then I'm like, I'm so alone, right? And that's totally fine too, right? We have this genetic predisposition. I'm saying that for Ginny because she has her cats like climbing over her head. And then Yolanda also said, how about picturing giving that love to myself as a love shield? Absolutely. As imagining the others giving it to me, lets me feel lonely as they aren't physically there. And it makes me dependable to the outside. So imagine myself hugging me better. Yes, I believe it's founded in a Buddhist meditation, but it actually says you can look at your pain and you can say like, I care about your pain, like just to yourself, because so often we are like our own worst enemy and we're super critical and we're like, you should be doing better and you're super weak and whatever. But actually just going like, no, I care about your pain, you know, like your pain matters to me. And it's you saying that to yourself. So thanks for bringing that up, Yolanda. I hack in a metaverse. Everyone could imagine to be a successful entrepreneur and not alone and feel like an engineer. Mark Zuckerberg. What is the pros and cons? You, in anything you do in life, you have pros and cons for doing it, and you can do it better or not as well. So you can have people that have sacrificed a lot of, and this is what I found out in my podcast, a lot of times people that achieve a tremendous level of success, people don't realize the tremendous cost that they have done to achieve that. And also success means that they are very successful at a niched area. That does not necessarily mean that they're also successful at life, that they're also successful with their relationships, that they're also successful mentally, right? It might just mean they are incredibly good at investing, incredibly good at building businesses, incredibly good at whatever it is, Olympic athletes. But you don't see all of the relationships and stuff that were sacrificed to get there. But the reverse is true. There are some people that do both. They are incredibly successful and they also are incredible at relationships. So I wanted to kind of open it up too. If you guys want to turn on your videos just to let share either times like how you feel as far as like where you typically feel lonely, but then also I'd love to hear what you guys do to navigate that in this crazy time that we have, COVID and everything that's going on.
Yes, please don't be shy. Feel free to interact with Michael directly. He's a nice guy, I think.
I just put on a good face. I'm actually the Grinch.
Roselyne, bonjour.
Coucou. It was so nice. Thank you so much for sharing.
You're welcome. Thanks for being here.
Any other questions to Michael?
Yeah, Michael, you just use like the right words,
just
to express.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just thinking like it was nice, like the examples you gave, about like how to care for others, like because actually it's also the way to process as well and to care for yourself, like a mirror. I like the sentences that you said as well.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, it's also like I wanted to share, it's like the times where I felt mostly lonely is when you are really in a group or on an event and you have this not connection. So I feel like connection, loneliness, and being alone, there's like a really a distinction between it, because even you feel connected, you can be lonely. And that is just like because maybe where you are in your mind is at another space than the other people, and then you can be surrounded. The most lonely time in my life I had in China, 15 years ago, being surrounded by like 23 million people basically, but then this contrast brings you like in this feeling like, whoa, I'm like nothing. And it's like, you are so disconnected because there's just so much, and you don't have this single person or that very close person you feel connected with totally. And I think that this is in Shanghai, for example, the Vata city, it's also like that. You have so many friends. I have like over 3,000 contacts on my mobile, like on WeChat, but it's like, how much do you master actually to bring a certain depth to like maybe even a single friendship, because you're just like torn away by all this kind of superficial like connections. And so that is maybe different from the hometown where you grow up with these people and you have this history together, and this history is giving a certain connection, and that's very hard, minimum for me to build up in this environment, which is so quick and changing all the time. So it's very interesting topic, and I'm very happy that you really distinguish these two things, because I often miss that distinction in speeches. So thank you for this great speech. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. It means a lot, and I think it's really important to realize that. And like I mentioned, just you know, in those different levels, like you were mentioning, like that intimate connection. So you might feel connected as a group, you know, in that group kind of connection, that collective connection, but then going like, how can I just do one tiny little thing to improve maybe an intimate connection? Like, let's have coffee, like, or maybe like every week we have coffee, right? Like that's the aspect of intentional, going like, you mean the most to me. Let's see if we can actually make this consistent, right? We schedule everything important in our life, but sometimes we don't actually schedule like, you are an important person. I would love to actually put you in my schedule consistently. So I'm
Yes,
glad you brought that up.
this is about a commitment as well, and I do think that this commitment is such a huge part to connection, and that connection is really bringing you out of that feeling lonely, for example. Yeah. And
Thank you.
yeah.
Thanks for
All
sharing.
right, guys. So last chance to ask one more question.
I was just thinking about what Michael was saying of upgrading your intimate relationships, for example. And I was thinking about the last time I invited Janine to come to my place and have lunch. And I remember Janine just said, wow, it's so nice that you invited me to come to your place, because most people nowadays, they just go to restaurants, they go to bars, but they don't invite you to go home, right? And to, you know, they don't really host you. And I think that's a very personal way, for example, that I use to really build my intimate relationships. So I like to invite my close friends, or the person that I really like to keep in my life, to you know, to have lunch with me. I love to cook. It's also a way of showing affection, showing love, right? So yeah, that's really beautiful what he said also about upgrading these relationships one small step at a time. Thank
I
you
love
so
that.
much for sharing.
Maria Alejandra was just sharing, you mentioned being authentically curious about yourself and others can definitely help improving the connections and interactions. This also helps you working out your empathy. This morning, so much, Michael. So guys, Michael is in all of the WeChat groups. You can connect with him directly. I'm pretty sure he will share something in there as well. And here, as you can see, we have our good lineup for this month. It's very exciting. So next week, we have Ivana speaking about tools to deal with toxic work environment and negativity. And I think she just published her new book. I'm sure she will talk about this as well. And yeah, most important is for this month, we have the Chinese version. It is not a Monday for the Chinese version. It will be a Wednesday morning at 8 o'clock. Let's just try it out, okay? Let's just do something good. And yes, we have our book membership. If there's something you need and want, feel free to contact us. And I hope you have a great day and a good start in a new day and week. Happy Monday. Michael, thank you so much for being with us this morning.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you so much
Thanks
for
having
being
me.
with us today.
Thank you. Bye bye. Have a great week.
Great start of your week. Bye.